They thought she was just another passenger, a woman in a wheelchair, slowing down the boarding process. Impatient glances, whispered sighs, a few rolled eyes from those who thought their schedules mattered more than her dignity. But when the crew decided she was holding up the line and tried to remove her from flight, they didn't realize who they were really dealing with. Because minutes after takeoff, at 35,000 feet, an alert would flash across the airline's corporate dashboard. Phones would start ringing. The flight number would be flagged in red. And every executive in that airline's headquarters would be scrambling to answer one question. Who just touched Dr. Maya Collins? You see, Maya wasn't just another traveler. She was a 38-year-old disability rights advocate, an internationally recognized researcher, and one of the consultants who helped write the very accessibility policy that this airline prided itself on. She'd lost her ability to walk 5 years earlier in a car crash, but not her determination or her voice. And that morning, she'd chosen the window seat on Flight 237, simply to get to a conference where she was scheduled to speak about inclusion and dignity. But fate and arrogance had other plans, because some lessons don't need to be taught in classrooms. They unfold midair, where karma has no turbulence warning. It began at Gate C-27, early morning at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, one of those terminals that always seem caught between chaos and caffeine. The loudspeaker crackled over the hum of tired travelers. Flight 237 to San Francisco will begin boarding shortly. A collective groan swept through the line. It was early. People were irritable, and every minute mattered. Among them sat Dr. Maya Collins, her sleek carbon fiber wheelchair gleaming faintly under the fluorescent lights. Her carry-on, a simple leather satchel, rested neatly on her lap. She wore a soft gray blazer, hair tied back in a low bun, and a quiet smile that carried both patience and poise. No one looking at her would have guessed she was one of the leading voices in disability inclusion policy, or that she'd helped draft the federal regulations airlines were supposed to follow. Pre-boarding now for passengers needing extra time or assistance, the gate attendant called. Maya rolled forward smoothly, her motions practiced, the kind of grace that comes from years of adapting to a world that rarely slows down. The gate agent smiled warmly. "Good morning, Dr. Collins." Maya nodded. "Morning. Thank you." But not everyone shared that warmth. Behind the counter, a junior flight attendant, Tara, leaned toward her colleague and whispered, Great. Pre-boarding again. We're going to lose our on-time mark." Always something. Her tone was sharp enough to cut glass. The colleague didn't respond, but Maya heard it. So did the older man in line behind her, who frowned and shook his head slightly. Still, Maya said nothing. She just smiled faintly, scanned her boarding pass, and maneuvered gracefully down the jet bridge, dignity intact, though the sting lingered. Once aboard, the cabin smelled faintly of brewed coffee and new upholstery. Maya rolled to her assigned seat, 3A near the front, and began preparing for transfer. It was a simple process, one she'd done countless times. Lock the brakes, detach the cushion, shift weight carefully, transfer arm by arm. A nearby passenger, a man in his 50s, stood up instinctively. "Here, let me help you with." Before he could finish, Tara appeared. "Sir, please take your seat," she said curtly. "We'll handle this." Except she didn't handle it. She hurried it. Maya could feel it immediately. The impatience, the edge in Tara's tone. "Ma'am, can you move a little faster?" Tara said, glancing toward the boarding line. "We got a full flight waiting." Maya's brow furrowed slightly. "I just need to lock the brakes first," she said evenly. Tara exhaled audibly, tapping her foot. "Ma'am, we really don't have time for this." A low murmur rippled through the cabin. Passengers watched, some annoyed, others uncomfortable. A young woman whispered, "Is she seriously rushing her?" Then another attendant, a man this time, leaned over. "Should we just aboard her and rebook?" he muttered. "She's holding everyone up." That did it. The air shifted. Several passengers looked appalled. Maya froze, not in fear, but disbelief. She'd faced bias before. She'd read reports about incidents like this. But rarely had she been the report. Tara reached forward, and placed a hand on her arm. "Ma'am, if you can't get seated quickly, we'll have to—" Maya's voice came calm, measured, but firm enough to still the aisle. "Please don't touch me." She looked Tara squarely in the eyes. "I can manage." The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that makes people realize they've crossed a line. Maya took her time, transferred smoothly, folded her chair with quiet efficiency. When she finally looked up, her expression was composed, but her eyes carried the weight of someone used to teaching lessons the hard way. No one on that plane, not Tara, not the other attendant, not even Captain, had any idea who she really was. Dr. Maya Collins, Vice Chair of the National Aviation Accessibility Board, the federal agency responsible for investigating exactly this kind of mistreatment. And in less than 2 hours, she would remind them all that respect isn't optional, it's policy. The tension inside Flight 237 hung like unspoken turbulence, invisible but unmistakably there. After an awkward stretch of silence, Dr. Maya Collins finally transferred into her seat. Her movements were steady, deliberate, practiced, the kind of precision born not from weakness, but from years of mastering her independence. Her wheelchair was folded and stowed away, but the air still felt heavy with discomfort. Across the aisle, passengers exchanged glances, some sympathetic, others uneasy. A few shook their heads quietly. Tara, the young flight attendant, busied herself with the safety checks, her posture rigid. Her face was a mask of professionalism, but the slight tremor in her hands betrayed her frustration, and maybe a twinge of guilt. When the captain's calm voice came over the intercom, "Good morning, folks. This is Captain Reynolds from the flight deck. We'll be cruising at 35,000 feet on our way to sunny San Francisco." It was almost ironic. He spoke of clear skies ahead, completely unaware that a storm was already brewing in his cabin. As the seatbelt signs blinked off, passengers settled in. The hum of the engines softened the awkward quiet that had filled the rows. A man sitting across from Maya, older, with kind eyes and a worn leather jacket, leaned toward her slightly. "Don't let them get to you," he said under his breath. Maya smiled faintly, her voice low but steady. "I won't," she replied. "I'm used to turbulence in more ways than one." Her calmness disarmed him. There was something about the way she carried herself, quiet confidence wrapped in grace, that made even the tense situation feel under control. Time passed. The cart rattled down the aisle. Tara, back in service mode, forced a polite smile for each row. But when she reached row 3A, her hand stiffened. She hesitated, eyes briefly meeting Maya's before flicking away. "Something to drink?" she asked, voice tight. "Just water, please," Maya said softly. Tara poured too quickly, and when she handed the cup over, water sloshed over the rim, dripping onto Maya's hand. "Oh, sorry," Tara said flatly, not quite making eye contact. She moved on before Maya could even respond. A few passengers frowned. One woman in the next row muttered, "That wasn't an accident." Maya simply dabbed her hand with a napkin and reached for her tablet. No anger, no outburst, just quiet purpose. She opened a secure portal, one that only a handful of people in the country even had access to. The header read, "Federal Aviation Administration, Accessibility Compliance Portal, authorized personnel only." Her credentials log her in instantly. Dr. Maya Collins, Vice Chair, National Aviation Accessibility Board. Then, with deliberate precision, she began typing. Flight 237, Chicago to San Francisco. Incident occurring during boarding and early cabin service. Discriminatory behavior by crew toward passenger with disability, including physical contact without consent, verbal impatience, and improper handling of assistive device. Each keystroke echoed softly under the white noise of the cabin. She time-stamped every action, attached relevant policy codes, and added a note. In-flight documentation recorded firsthand. Immediate review requested under Section 382 of the Air Carrier Access Act. Then she hit submit. Somewhere, hundreds of miles below them, in the Airline's Dallas headquarters, a soft electronic ping disrupted the quiet hum of the compliance office. On the monitor flashed a red banner. Priority Level 1 Passenger Complaint. Civil Rights Violation Active Flight. 2 compliance officers froze. Then one leaned forward. "Wait," she murmured. "Look at the sender." Her colleague squinted, then his eyes widened. "Oh my God, Dr. Maya Collins." Within minutes, the report had escalated, bypassing mid-level management entirely, and landed in the inbox of the airline's vice president of operations. He didn't even finish reading it before calling the director of flight services. "Get a message to that captain. Now." In the cockpit, Captain Reynolds was mid-conversation with his co-pilot when a chime sounded on the onboard communication screen. He glanced over, reading the incoming directive, his brow furrowed. Then, slowly, he read it aloud. "Passenger Dr. Maya Collins is aboard. Ensure she is assisted respectfully. Incident under review. Maintain professionalism." A long pause. Then the captain looked at his first officer. "Wait, that Dr. Collins?" The co-pilot nodded grimly. "The one who sits on the National Aviation Accessibility Board." Captain Reynolds leaned back in his chair, exhaling through his teeth. "Well, that's not just turbulence," he muttered. "That's a storm." He flipped on the cabin comm and called for the lead attendant. "Hey, Tara." His voice crackled softly through the intercom. "We need to talk." Down the aisle, Tara froze mid-step, coffee pot in hand, as every word of her earlier behavior suddenly replayed in her mind. And 35,000 feet above ground, she realized something chilling. The passenger she'd tried to rush wasn't powerless. She was the person who wrote the rules. The wheels touched down at San Francisco International Airport with a soft screech, but the silence in the cabin was anything but soft. No applause, no chatter, just a low hum of realization that something serious was happening. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm but tinged with unease. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to San Francisco. Please remain seated as we taxi to the gate." A few rows back, Tara sat stiffly on the jump seat, replaying every word she'd said, every impatient glance, every sigh. Her hands trembled as she clipped her harness. She wanted to say something, to Maya, to anyone, but the weight of what she'd done kept her silent. As the plane rolled to a stop, the cabin door opened. But instead of the usual bustle of gate agents and cleaning crews, there were two men in dark suits waiting at the jet bridge, one holding a tablet, the other wearing a corporate badge that read Regional Director, Passenger Experience Division. Behind them stood another woman, calm and collected, with a headset and a clipboard. She wasn't smiling. Passengers began to file out, murmuring among themselves. The air felt charged, like everyone knew something big was unfolding, but didn't dare to ask. When Maya's turn came, the captain stepped out of the cockpit. He was composed, his cap in hand, posture formal. "Dr. Collins," he said softly, eyes full of sincerity, "I wasn't aware you were flying with us today." Maya gave a small, understanding smile. Her tone wasn't sharp. It was steady, almost gentle. "I wasn't here in any official capacity, Captain. Just a passenger." She paused, her gaze cutting subtly toward Tara, "until I wasn't treated like one." The captain nodded, shame washing over his face. "Understood, ma'am," he said quietly. "We'll make it right." He then personally unlocked and positioned her wheelchair, ensuring the brakes were secure. It was a simple gesture, but one filled with the respect that should have been there from the beginning. As Maya was about to exit, the regional director, a tall man with careful diction, stepped forward. His voice carried the weight of corporate panic, wrapped in politeness. "Dr. Collins, please accept our deepest apologies," he began. "We've already been made aware of the situation. It's under full review, and the staff involved will be retrained immediately." Maya adjusted her coat, her expression unreadable. "I'm not here for an apology," she said evenly. "I'm here to make sure the next person in this chair doesn't get treated the same way." Her words landed heavier than any reprimand. They weren't angry. They were purposeful. Tara stood nearby, tears brimming at the corners of her eyes. She whispered, almost to herself, "I didn't mean to." Maya turned slightly, her voice calm but firm. "I know you mean to, but intent doesn't erase impact." The cabin went silent again. Even the sound of the connecting jet bridge seemed to hush around her. The regional director straightened. taking notes mentally, every word logged like scripture. We'll be issuing a formal follow-up, Dr. Collins. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Maya gave a nod. You're welcome. Though, it shouldn't have taken my title for that to happen. Then, with quiet dignity, she rolled down the jet bridge, not as an angry passenger, but as a living reminder of accountability. Outside the aircraft, the morning sun streamed through the windows, casting golden light on the tarmac. The captain watched as she left, his reflection faint in the glass, a man realizing that leadership wasn't just about flying safely, but about treating every soul aboard with respect. Behind him, Tara stood frozen, the magnitude of her mistake finally sinking in. For her, this wasn't just a bad day at work. It was a turning point. And for everyone who witnessed it, passengers, crew, even corporate, it was a wake-up call that would echo far beyond Gate 17B. By the following week, the story had spread far beyond the airport. It didn't start with an influencer or a press release. It started with a shaky, 22-second cell phone video. The clip showed Dr. Maya Collins sitting in her wheelchair, calm and composed, as a flustered flight attendant raised her voice. No shouting, no argument, just Maya's quiet dignity against a wave of disrespect. The caption beneath the video read, "Crew tries to remove woman in wheelchair, then finds out she oversees airline compliance." Within hours, it hit Reddit, TikTok, and Twitter, X. By sunset, it had crossed 8 million views. By morning, it was on national news. Comment sections lit up with outrage and admiration alike. One user wrote, "She didn't need to yell. Her silence said everything." Another, "That flight attendant learned it more in 5 minutes than any training could teach." Meanwhile, inside the airline's headquarters in Dallas, executives huddled in an emergency meeting. Screens displayed the trending video. PR team scrambled. The CEO's voice was tight. "How do we let this happen?" An HR director replied, "She didn't file a public complaint. The passengers did. That's the part that's going viral." How she stayed calm. A silence fell across the room. Then the CEO said, "Then let's meet her calm with action." By noon, the airline released a statement across every platform. "We deeply regret the incident involving Dr. Collins. We are implementing mandatory accessibility and empathy training for all flight and ground staff, effective immediately. Respect is not optional, it's essential." It wasn't corporate spin. For once, they meant it. Inside airports around the country, the ripple effects began almost instantly. Training videos were updated. Announcements changed. Staff were reminded, assistance isn't charity, it's respect. As for Maya, she never commented, never shared the clip. She didn't have to. She continued traveling. Same routine, same gentle poise. But things were different now. Gate agents smiled when they saw her coming. Passengers moved to help, not out of pity, but out of admiration. Even children whispered, "That's the lady from the plane." And every time she rolled down a jet bridge, people straightened a little taller, not because she was famous, not because she was powerful, but because she had reminded the world that true authority doesn't need a badge or a title. It lives in how you carry yourself when you're disrespected. That day, Maya didn't just change an airline's policy. She changed its culture. Because while others shouted, she simply acted. And in her quiet strength, the world finally listened. They saw a woman in a wheelchair, but what they didn't see was the power behind her silence. A strength built not from anger, but from grace. They tried to remove her, as if her presence was slowing them down. But in truth, she was the one holding a mirror to everything that was broken in their system. They mistook calm for weakness. They mistook courtesy for compliance. And in doing so, they forgot the simplest truth of all. That dignity doesn't need to shout to be heard. By the time that plane touched down, it wasn't just an aircraft landing. It was an awakening. Because in a world where too many people speak without thinking, she reminded them that quiet courage can shake the very walls of power. They tried to remove her, but instead, she removed their ignorance and replaced it with a lesson that will echo through every boarding gate, every flight crew briefing, and every heart humble enough to listen,